having lived in Japan for more than 30 years. I deeply respect and admire how Japanese people conduct themselves and their self-discipline in adhering to their way of life. Over the years, I have also navigated my way through cultivating relationships and fostering bonds with them. Along the way, I have adopted some of these values myself: consideration, cleanliness, thriftiness, and the joy of sharing what I have with others. However, there is one particular way of thinking in Japan, 迷惑をかけない, meaning not causing inconvenience to others, that brought me much sadness when my close Japanese friend Rumi passed away from cancer 4 years ago. She never told me about her illness because she didn't want to burden or worry me. Rumi was diagnosed with appendix cancer in 2019 during a routine company checkup, as her son later told me after her passing. Our sons had attended the same kindergarten and elementary school, and I first met her at the kindergarten. When our children were young, she and some other mothers would often come to my house for tea while our children played together. Since a few of us loved to sew and knit, we would bring our handicrafts along, spending hours chatting about nothing in particular. As our children grew older and became more independent, most of the moms in our group began working part-time to support their families. Though we no longer saw each other as often as before, we made an effort to meet a few times a year for lunch, catching up and sharing stories about our lives. According to her son, appendix cancer is difficult to detect, and by the time Rumi was diagnosed, she was already at a terminal stage. She didn't pursue aggressive treatment since there wasn't much the doctors could do. But in 2019, we continued to meet for lunch every 2 or 3 months, and I never noticed anything unusual about her. She ate, laughed, and talked as she always did. The last time I saw Rumi was in January 2020. Shortly after, the world was gripped by the spread of COVID-19, and meeting in person became impossible. That year, both our sons were preparing for their university entrance exams. With masks in short supply, I was overwhelmed when Rumi came to my house without notice and left some masks in my mailbox. Along with the mask was a simple note. 少しだけど使ってね. Please use this, although there aren't many. Her kindness and thoughtfulness brought me to tears. Despite her own struggle, she was thinking of others. In her message, she mentioned wanting to take a trip together when the weather warmed up. I eagerly agreed, replying, "Yes, let's go somewhere with our friends after our son's exams." My son wore one of the masks she gave us for his university entrance exams in February, and he passed the university of his choice. The last message I received from Rumi was at the end of March. She shared that her son hadn't passed his first choice university, but would try applying to a private one, which he eventually succeeded in entering. I suggested having lunch once the COVID situation improved, but the pandemic didn't subside for another 2 years. Then in August 2020, I received a message from her son. He wrote that Rumi had passed away in July, and due to COVID, the funeral had been a private family gathering. I was in shock. My mind refused to accept it. We had met in January and she seemed perfectly fine. No visible weight loss, no sign of illness. How could she be gone? We were supposed to take a trip together. It just couldn't be true. Then came the self-blame. Why didn't I notice she was unwell? Shouldn't I have sent something? I kept thinking I should have insisted on driving her home after our lunches. I couldn't stop the tales. There were so many unanswered questions, so many regrets. A few friends and I arranged to visit her house to pay our respect and offer our condolences. We brought her favorite sweets and flowers. Speaking with her family, we learned it had been Rumi's wish not to tell us about her illness. She didn't want to worry us or become a burden. Even now, 4 years later, I still struggle to accept her passing. The pain of not being able to say goodbye lingers. I wish I could tell her how much I miss her, and I wish I could say to her that it's okay to lean on others sometimes. If you were diagnosed with a serious illness, would you tell your friends and loved ones, or would you keep it to yourself to avoid worrying them? I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences.